Alrighty, quite a Wednesday. Some excellent action this morning. Let's go ahead and break down the setup. As a reminder, before we actually jump into the intraday action, looking at the bigger picture here at more of the macro levels, at some of the daily levels, we're trading near a key daily pivot. This was highlighted in the weekly kickoff as well as the past couple of sessions, just that this 42.35 zone is a key area of support. So one of the scenarios that I outlined in the weekly kickoff was for potential consolidation down here near the lows, down near the daily pivot, before actually seeing that leg lower. That is essentially exactly what we saw with this recent action. If you take a look at where the volume, the near-term volume point of control here is, that yellow line on the chart, 42.65. So after a couple of attempts at 42.80 over the past few sessions that were rejected, we get continued distribution in this 42.65 area. Price action actually rejects that volume point of control this morning during the pre-market session, which was actually a phenomenal clue, and then resolves lower. There's essentially no bid here when we look at the 15-minute. There's absolutely no bid here in that key area of daily support. So that tells us, we need to be more cautious with any long setups. Now, following that, we did catch a bit of a rally later in the morning around 10 a.m. reversal time. Love that 10 a.m. reversal time trade. We get a bounce back, essentially back into that daily pivot. Now, this is where action gets a little tricky because we need to be thinking about the big picture. Right, we see a couple bounces here. We think that, all right, maybe this was just a fake out and now support is holding. This is why it's very, very important to stay nimble and really zoom out, get a bigger picture focus as to how price is developing. When I say stay nimble, if you hear me saying that, this is what I'm talking about. Anytime we're trading near key zones, you don't really get a clear picture on how price is actually developing until structure develops, until some of those 15 and 30-minute candles are closing. As we can see, there's essentially just a retest of the key daily pivot before resolving lower into our downside targets at 42.20 and 4,200, a few points shy of that 4,200 area. So now the question is, where to from here? Well, if we take a look at the daily, we're still working with this early summer consolidation. And so what I'd like to see is if sellers can show continuation to test some of these lower levels, 41.75, 41.60 area. This is going to be a key zone. See these lows here in late April and then in early May. It's going to be a key area of support looking at potential continued downside. Now, of course, early tomorrow, I will be looking at the 4,200 level, depending on what type of overnight action we see. As a reminder, daily year-to-date volume point of control is right here at that 42.35. Adds to the significance of that level. Not only a daily pivot there, but also the daily time frame volume point of control. So for tomorrow, just looking to see if bears can show any type of continuation. As far as today's structure, we do have a bit of an afternoon base to work with. However, if you take a look at the session volume point of control, it's still up here at 4,227. So we still have half an hour before the close. I would be interested to see if that session volume point of control shifts down here, and then we'll have a much more solid reference point to work with, again, depending on what type of overnight action we see. I know we still do have some big earnings players coming after the close and coming later on this week, as well as GDP later on this week. So a lot to look forward to into the end of the week. That's pretty much ES. To reiterate, 4,200, right? Going to be a big psychological level there. And then for our upside level, the main watch is that 42.35 zone. So for individual names, the scan was pretty light. The list was pretty light. I have BA potential second day, looking for continuation here to the downside. All right, big sell bar today on higher than average volume, on 240% daily average volume. So we're looking for continued selling there. GE inside day. So broad buy bar yesterday, looking for continuation today. It attempted to put in that move. Broader index definitely did not help this one. And so we just want to see how this inside day breaks. Generally speaking, you want to go with the break of the inside bar. So if the inside bar breaks down, you want to be shorting. If it breaks up, you want to be long. Next up and final is Google. Looking for the second day trade here. We did have 130 as the key pivot for today's session. I believe this was posted as a no bias idea. 130 rejects. You get the move into 127, 126.5 area where it attempts an initial bounce. That's that daily support, but ultimately resolves lower. Did have a downside target of 123 here, which is that gap fill. Didn't quite get there. So we'll be treating this again as a second day trade. We do have pretty tight action here. Nice. Essentially an all day tight base to work with for tomorrow. So we'll see how this one resolves. ATR is 3.7 and intraday it only did 3. So that's definitely an anomaly, right? Likely going to have a decent move from this range. So that's Google. NQ, we'll touch on this really quick. Main watch today and for the past couple of weeks has been that 14,600 level. Definitely broke down today, right? You get an initial bid right there, which was pretty nice for some longs if you missed that short off of the open. Decent spot for some longs, but ultimately resolves lower, right? You want to be careful with this early afternoon drift, especially after a broad selling off the open. So get some drift and then ultimately just break support. No real bid there again at the 14,600. Breaks below, retest. There's a good short opportunity and ultimately resolves lower. So we were looking at essentially 14,300 as a downside target. You have your volume point of control, or excuse me, a high volume node right through here. Some prior structure, looks like late May, and then the 200 MA. So this is definitely going to be a big level here on NQ. Perhaps tomorrow we get a test of that area depending on what the overnight session looks like and how we open up into the morning. So that's the list. Main focus remains the index. We're getting great opportunities within the index. Individual names has definitely been hit or miss. One of the weaker starts to an earnings season that I've seen in recent memory as far as the setups within individual names. So if you're focused on the index right now, it's definitely the place to be. Any questions, guys? All good, all good. Sweet. Alrighty. I'll be seeing most of you in the TMG. So I'll chat with you guys in about 25 minutes. Later.